Well, let me start by asking what you think is happening in the Republican Party today. As we were saying beforehand, before we came out here, if I was to have guessed on January 6th where the party was going to go and how it would react to those events, I would have thought that after President Trump left office, the party would have regrouped and kind of forgotten about him. And you made the good point that that's kind of what the Democrats did with Jimmy Carter after his loss. It's only in recent years and in recent weeks that Jimmy Carter's sort of come back with kind of a fond set of memories. That's not what happened. Mm-hmm. They ended up coalescing around the former president. So dissect for us what's happening.
Sure. I'll obviously focus on the GOP because that's my party, but we're seeing similar trends in both parties, and ultimately, part of my concern is that the fringes, the political continuum is no longer a line; it's a horseshoe. And the fringes are closer to each other than they are to the middle. And both parties are appealing to the edges rather than that center. And so ultimately, that's why you're seeing the fact that a number of Republican primary voters, a large group, depending on what polling you look at, still believe Donald Trump should be the titular head of the Republican Party. They would vote for him again if he was running for an election. And so many
of them believe he should be the legitimately elected president.
Sure. And so that is the primary voter. That is what Republicans are dealing with in the Republican electorate. The broader concern here, and why that is catching on, and you're seeing what I consider to be a lack of ideological consistency within the party, within both parties, to be frank, is in 2020, 92% of the House seats were decided in the primary. Only 34 seats were split tickets, right? So in the previous presidential election, people voted for one party of president and the opposite party for the House seat. 34. That's 8%. That's insane. That number 20 years ago was north of 75. 30 years ago, that number was in the 90s, and 40 years ago, it was well over 125, right? And so the fact that most of these decisions are being made in a primary. Then you look at, again, these are 2020 numbers, the average number of people that voted in a contested primary, whether it was Republican or Democrat, the average, 55,000 people. That means 27,501 people decided who 92% went to Washington, D.C. Now, in my election, it's really one of the jump balls, it can go either way. 325,000 people come out to vote, right? And so the fact that you don't have enough people voting in these primaries, yes, there's a number of initiatives to try to make it, to expand or to change how the primary process works, but ultimately, we need more people voting in those primaries. And so, when you look at those 55,000 people in a primary, and 30% of them, 30 to 40% of them, are believing that, not believing something around Donald Trump should be the future of the Republican Party, that's where the problem is. And I would pretend Donald Trump lost, right? Like he lost kind of by a big number when it was all kind of all said. And then when you look at other Republicans, the two takeaways in 2020, in my opinion, don't be a jerk, don't be a socialist. That was the takeaway. And unfortunately, both sides one side's trying to become bigger jerks, the other side's trying to become bigger socialists, and they didn't take their lesson away from that election. Republicans significantly, down ballot, significantly outperformed Donald Trump in the 2020 election. And why some of those folks are still subscribing to that, I don't know the answer.